Jane Penwell, now the sole host on Kaleidoscope, since Nan has retired, or semi-retired anyway, from the video business. So just me to greet you here today. I'm introducing our show, which I hope will be interesting to you. I did interviews with, well, there were actually 4 people here that I talked to, and the whole focus of the interview that you'll see is the Omni group at Ohio University doing studies, live human studies. They're trying to create a group of people who are willing to participate. So you'll hear all about it, and you'll hear how you might volunteer to be in this study. And, you know, maybe you would want to, maybe you wouldn't, you know, it doesn't matter. But the interesting thing about all this is the premise of the story. The premise of this study is to find out whether or not, as we get older, our muscles weaken because physiologically the muscle itself weakens, or at least a part of that weakness is caused by the signals weakening to the muscle coming from the brain. So does the brain have something to do with this? And I think that's pretty fascinating. When they explained this, I was at a meeting, they explained it. I was dumbfounded. Whoever thought of that, you know? We always think our brain's okay. What the heck? I mean, in my brain, I feel like I'm 25. So how could that be? But, you know, this could be the nerves that the signal travels along. Who knows what? So this is really important because people are living longer and longer and getting to a point. Some of them, certainly not all of them. My grandmother lived to be 90 and there was never anything wrong with her. But my mother had a series of strokes and was in a nursing home and definitely got weak and eventually was in a wheelchair because she was never out of bed, I think, for one thing. And then for another thing, as she had more strokes, her bodily functions changed and she wasn't able to do a lot of things. And this is the type of person that they would hope to help, I think. So you'll see it. I'm not going to tell the whole story. I couldn't. I don't even know it. So complicated. But you'll see it later on, and I hope you enjoy it. Now today, I am recruiting. I'm recruiting for my Halloween show. Ah, you say, what could Jane's Halloween show possibly be? I'm looking for Athens residents or Athens County people who have either had a personal experience with a personal supernatural experience, or who know of someone who did and would like to tell the story. I'm also going to see if I can rustle up somebody who really knows the story of what happened in that room up on the ridges. Because I've heard, I don't know how many different stories about that. Is there really the ghostly outline of a body on the floor up there? I don't know. So I'm going to see what I can find out about that, because that's Athens' own, very own ghost story. But you notice I said supernatural, paranormal, whatever word you want to use. It doesn't have to be a ghost encounter. I have one of my own that I'm going to tell, and it has nothing at all to do with ghosts. So you may have had a vision of some kind, you know, whatever. So we're going to say paranormal, or if you prefer, supernatural experience. And that's what we're going to be interested in on the Halloween show. And I would love it if you would contact me here at the station if you would like to volunteer to come on and be interviewed by me. I think you can tell from what you've seen that it'll be fun. It won't hurt a bit, I promise. And you'll get a chance to tell a story that maybe you've kind of been interested in for yourself all these years. So there's two ways to contact me. The first is call the station. The number is 740-592-2529. Let me say that again. 740-592-2529. That's the station's telephone number. And you would ask for me, Jane Penwell. I probably won't be here, but leave a message with your name, your phone number, or your email address, however you prefer for me to contact you, and I will do so to hear your story. And then for those of you who don't call, you can email the studio by sending an email to mgreen, all one word, mgreen at actv23.com. Now say that again. Send an email to mgreen at actv23, squish that all up together, no spaces, .com. And I hope if you have a little story or you know something about, especially if it has an Athens flavor, I hope you'll think it would be fun to be on the Halloween show. And if you like, you can wear a costume. Because I'm thinking about it myself. I haven't really decided yet. I do have a witch's hat at home, but I don't know that I want to be a witch, so I have to think about that. But definitely we can have some spooky music, woo, playing in the background. I'll tell my story, you can tell your story, and then hopefully I'll find somebody who can talk about the story on the ridges and tell us the real deal about what happened up there on the ridges that all the undergraduates hear about as soon as they come here, I think. So that story kind of gets exaggerated, I think, from year after year. So that's my plea. I hope you're listening, and I hope you think it would be fun to do, because I guarantee it'll be fun. If I do anything, it's got to be fun. So there you go. And again, as I said, a costume if you so prefer. If you don't even want anybody to know who you are, you can wear a mask. How about that? Just don't choose a mask that's the face of some political person, please. Like a Donald Trump mask. Oh, please don't do that. You can wear a lion mask, a tiger mask, whatever. But please, not a political person mask. I don't think I could take it. I've had enough of that already, and it's still 2015. Okay, so let's move on to our interview, and you will see that the Omni people are explaining what they're doing, and they're talking about how you could participate, and so hopefully you'll think that this is a good way to volunteer your time. Hello, Athens. This is Athens Kaleidoscope, and I'm Jane Penwell, and as you can see, I'm here with two guests today. So we're going to be talking to Brian Clark and Rachel Clift, two C's. I can remember that, hopefully. And they're going to tell you about their current study, and it's so interesting to me. I'm kind of a science geek anyway, and I just love this stuff. They're studying, get this, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I probably will be. But as I understand it, they're trying to find out if, as you age, do your muscles get weaker, or is the brain a factor in this?
You're spot on, Jane.
Oh, I just think this is fascinating. Maybe the impulses that are going from your brain to your muscles aren't as strong as they were. And, how do you figure that out? Well, Brian's going to tell us. But this is also a study that is being done on human subjects. So there is some need for people who would be interested in participating, and we'll talk about that later. And, you know, I think a lot of times when you say that, people think of little rats, you know.
The guinea pig?
Guinea pigs
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. No, that's not the way it is. I was in one of their studies, and it was really fine. Everybody treated you nicely. I didn't have this big thing on my head, you know. Zzz, zzz. None of that, none of that. So this is really a fascinating aspect to OU, too. The Omni is what the facility is called, and it's a part of OU. It's a part of our university here, and that's fascinating, too, because it's kind of grown by leaps and bounds since I first ever knew about it. So, Brian, tell me, how did you get here, and how did Omni begin?
So, two different paths, obviously. Omni actually, I'll start with Omni.
Yeah.
Omni's actually almost as old as I am.
Oh, boy.
Omni was started in the late 70s.
Wow.
It wasn't called Omni then. It was called, I think, initially the Somatic Dysfunction Laboratory, and then that turned into the Interdisciplinary Institute for Neuromusculoskeletal Research.
Say that 10 times fast.
Well, right. And then I took that over from John Howell. John Howell started it and directed it until 2008. And John's a well-known figure in the Athens community, ranging from his academic time to now more of his community activism. And so I took over in 2008 when John was heading into retirement. And we just changed the name at the time because, as you said, Interdisciplinary Institute for Neuromusculoskeletal Research was a little bit of a mouthful, and the abbreviation for that was the IINR, which also didn't roll off the tongue easily. Nah. So we simply renamed it and rebranded it as the Ohio Musculoskeletal Neurological Institute, because that made for a really nice acronym of OMNI.
Perfect.
Which I think helped us communicate out to the community a lot more.
I think so too. For one thing, everybody can say it.
Right.
Omni.
Yes.
See, that's...
There's a hotel chain, right?
Exactly. I was going to say, I think I stayed in an Omni once. So those of you out there who are watching and might be interested as we go on and you learn more about this, Omni is easy to remember, and we're going to put the information up on the screen towards the end. But you, in terms of the Omni Center now, have also grown, right?
We have grown. We've had a lot of, I don't know if it's luck or if it's success or if it's a combination of the two there, but over the past 5 years, we've really had a lot of growth, not only in terms of the kind of work we're doing, but also particularly at the federal level and getting funding to do the work. You know, it's always the biggest challenge in doing anything is making sure you can pay the bills.
For sure.
And we've been fortunate enough to receive some significant grants over the past few years to permit us to grow. So yeah, we've had a lot of growth in the past few years, particularly in our what we call the clinical research realm, which is, as you said, it's the work we do on patients and human subjects. That's where about 90% of our current research lies. We've got a heavy focus on trying to translate findings to the bedside.
That's the most interesting. I just am fascinated. This particular study that you're doing now is fascinating. The one before that I participated in also, it was one where they were testing a drug that had been designed to strengthen the muscles of people who had been weakened by bed rest or, whatever. And that was interesting too, but, the idea that the brain's involved, now I'm really fascinated. So do you have like a staff of people writing your grants?
No, I typically write the grants. That's my job, is to write the grants, although we do have a lot of other investigators within Omni. We've got a large number of scientists within Omni who also write grants. But we don't have like a large army of people that do that per se. We do have a large army of people that work on the studies, but there's probably about somewhere between 6 and 8 of us that regularly write the grants to try to get the funding to bring it in. And I'm just one little piece of those people.
I know, because when you go there, if you participate, you'll see there's different things going on. It isn't ever just one thing. So, or maybe it might be, but not for long.
No, we work closely with the new unit that's been created, and actually Rachel's part of this unit, the Clinical and Translational Research Unit at the university. And a lot of our studies, our human studies, are sort of managed in concert with them. And Rachel, how many human studies are you guys managing within that unit now?
So right now, 1, 2, 3, there are 4 ongoing, but more coming down the pipeline right now.
Yeah. So there's multiple studies going on at any one time.
Well, it's a fascinating thing to think that the small community of Athens can support you. That's amazing. So Rachel, when you're actually doing this, are you responsible for recruiting people?
A little bit of everything. Yeah. So we do work closely with Brian. That's how we met folks like you and get out into the community. But we actually have someone on our unit, a community engagement specialist, Megan, who works. That's kind of her sole job, is to really work with the community and get the information about all of our studies out. And we do that in a variety of ways like this. We do newspaper, we're radio, we're out doing community events. So, but a lot of it is word of mouth, and folks like you who have participated before that go back out into the community and
and say, well, see,
Yeah.
I'm still alive. Nothing horrible happened to me. It really isn't that bad. As I said, no, went on. So, what do you think is the biggest barrier? What stops people? What do people say? Like, oh, I don't want to because.
That's a really good question. I think there's a wide variety of reasons that folks are maybe don't participate in research, and some of it I think might be a stigma that might be attached to a certain type of scenario. We work with lots of different things from diabetes to depression, cognitive delays. So I think that sometimes it's breaking that barrier to inform people that they could be helping others, and so to me that's the biggest barrier is the lack of knowledge of what's behind the scenes, and we're trying to improve that and get information out there.
And fear of the unknown too.
I think so
when
too.
you say they're going to study you, what does that mean? It's like
Right.
So fear of the unknown, but I think that. A lot of people have the desire to be helpful and to help others. So if they can get the word that this is one way to do it, and really it's not going to be, probably the worst thing that'll happen to you is trying to find a parking spot at OU. That's probably the worst.
Which we
Yes, Brian, taking care of that. Tell us about the parking spots, Brian.
So let me say one thing, Jane. I've been in Athens about a decade now, and when I came here, I used to joke that my biggest concern was whether or not I'd be able to stay in Athens to do the work I do, because it is a small town. I mean, there's 60,000 people in the whole county, and sometimes our studies need hundreds of people. I've been totally proven wrong. In fact, I now argue that Athens is the best place to do this kind of work. When we kicked off this particular study in July of this past year. It's September the 24th right now, if I remember my dates are correct. I hope.
Tomorrow's the 25th,
Yep.
so this has to be the 24th.
And so we kicked this thing off a few months ago. We did two things. We did a community kickoff event at the community center where I gave a 30 or 40 minute presentation on the talk that probably had 40 or 50 people in it. And then Fred Kite wrote an article for the Athens News about the study. And that's really the only advertising we've done so far. We had, just from those two things, we have a wait list of 150 people wanting to do this study now. So we only probably need 100 to actually enroll. Now, we may not, of those 150, not everybody's going to qualify. But it's been flabbergasting to me, the support we get, particularly from the older adults in the community that reach out and are willing to do studies for us. The reason people volunteer is there's a million different reasons. Sometimes it's altruism, sometimes it's remuneration, sometimes
because you do get paid.
Yeah, we typically pay people in this study. We do. Sometimes it's social engagement. I mean, we have people that come to just engage with us and to have something to do and to have a place to go and feel appreciated. So, but to go back to your point about parking, you're right. When you did the study, we only had one parking spot.
One. I never got in at once, by the way.
And we used to joke that getting one parking spot at Ohio University was like winning the lottery. Well,
Yes.
Rachel's supervisor, Laura Rush, the director of her unit, was able to get another 8 parking spots. So I think we now have 9 parking spots.
What a magician.
For people to come in.
I can't even believe it. Well, see, I was lucky because I'm still working at OU part-time, so I had a sticker.
Yep.
So I could park, miles away, granted, but I could park.
Well,
Not really.
We did this show with you 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And on the show, Jane said that her number one complaint about the study was parking. And I actually used that in some meetings with parking facilities. I hope nobody for parking is watching.
That's why they hate me.
I used that quote in that scenario to make the argument that we, not only do we need more parking, we have to get more parking.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of people in their 90s that participate in our studies.
Yeah.
With serious mobility limitations at times. So access is huge, but we've worked out those kinks.
That's good. So there, if you that stops a lot of people.
Yep.
That does.
It really does, because it's just a nightmare. And if you come out and you find one of those things on your car, or your car's been towed away, it's horrible. You just don't know. That happened to me, as a matter of fact. My car got towed away. This has been years ago when I first got here.
Sure.
And I didn't realize that I was parking in a place where my sticker didn't allow me to park. And I don't know where in the heck I had to go to get that car, but it seemed out in the middle of nowhere. Oh, it was such a nightmare. So that's not going to happen to you. You will have a parking place and be able to walk to Omni without too much trouble, I think. So when you set up a study, when you're thinking about writing a grant, you get an idea, you find out something is available in terms of a study. Mm-hmm. Do you have certain criteria? What makes you say, I want to go after that one?
Well, that's a good question. So typically most of the work I do comes from the National Institutes of Health. Mm-hmm. So it's our tax-paying dollars that fund these things. Not all NIH grants, but the majority of NIH grants are what they call investigator-initiated grants. Mm-hmm. And these are grants where effectively or essentially we can propose to do any series of experiments that we want, and we ask for money for it. Mm-hmm. We apply for them, and they go to what's called a study section. I sit on one of these study sections at NIH. I've got to go in next week or 2 weeks from now to actually review these grants. So I'm pretty in the know of how this process works. So essentially, a bunch of people will submit a grant to what they call a study section. And the study sections are a group of scientists that have expertise in this topic area. And you'll sit around for a day, sometimes 2 days, and discuss the strengths and weaknesses of these grants in terms of the big thing we look at is the impact to science and medicine. Is what's being proposed going to vertically elevate our current system, our current knowledge base, meaning we're going to go from here to here in our understanding of something, as opposed to incremental. That's what we don't want, is incremental things. So we look to see what's going to vertically change. And then basically you give these things a score. So it's a 1 to 9 scale. 1 is virtually unheard of. That's a perfect score, basically. A 9 is you're not going to get funded.
Go back to the drawing board.
Go back to the drawing board. 5 is average. Mm-hmm. And if you get a score that's in the 1 to 3 range on average, 1 to 2 range probably is more appropriate, you've got a good chance of getting funding. So then they'll take all of these scored grants across all these different study sections. They'll send it to an institute within the government that will then look at them, and they'll have an advisory council that will look and say, okay, of these that received good scores, we're going to select X number based on their budget to what they can fund. And so effectively, we don't typically see something that comes out and say, I want to do a study. It's not typically that the agency that's giving us the money is telling us what they want done. Rather, it's us coming up with the ideas.
Interesting.
Now, occasionally, the study you were in was what we call an industry-sponsored trial. Industry-sponsored trials are a little different, and that's one where we will be approached by, in your case, it was a pharmaceutical company. It could be a medical device company. It could be a private foundation for rare diseases or something like that. And they'll say, we want to do a study on A, B, or C. Do you guys want to be involved with it? And then in some cases, the one you were in, I had actually worked with that company for 5 years back and forth on many conference calls as well as trips to their head facilities and other places to help design the study. So in some cases, people like me actually have intellectual input into the design. In some cases, there's no input at all. They just say, take it or leave it. You're in or you're out, and you just have to make that decision based on a lot of different factors. So,
well, it's really interesting, and I think it's reassuring to us as taxpayers that there is a lot of care taken to really try to find the best studies to fund.
Yeah, right now, it varies year to year depending on the political landscape and stuff, but generally speaking, about the top 10% of grants get funded. So it's a fierce, competitive
I see that.
playing field, to say the least.
I can see that. I can see that. And so, in the process of putting together, you get funded, you put together the study, and then you're going to implement it. Okay, and so that's when you go to Rachel's group and say, "Woohoo! We need people. Can you drum up some people for us?" And so is that pretty much when you hear from not just Brian but anybody?
The investigators.
Yeah, the investigators.
Yeah, so they'll approach us, or we'll sometimes approach them in certain settings that we run across folks, and so they typically come through our unit, and we help to facilitate from startup to close out. So we can work from the recruitment side of things, from making forms. Things have to be. It's how the investigators collect the data. So we work with them to what best works with them, from record keeping to. Gosh, we have nurses on our staff, so from nursing services to services like Dr. Amano, who you'll meet here soon, our research scientists, so a whole array of things to kind of help that investigator hopefully take a little bit of the load off to where he can do more focus on the science itself. Take the logistics off of their
not so much on the nitty-gritties of
absolutely.
Yes. the everyday. Well, and so in your capacity then, are you always looking for people? Or do you just look for specific studies? Like once this revs up, then you say, oh gosh, they're going to need, X number of people.
So it's interesting that you mentioned this. So we're hoping down the road that there would be a database that we could start collecting folks who are interested. There are lots of these registries that are out there on national levels. Researchmatch.com, I think, is one of them, to where you can go right now, put your name and information in, and say some things that you're interested in, your age, your height, your weight, things, and researchers can actually go in and find your information and contact you that way.
Oh, fascinating.
So we hope down the road that there is, which actually I think Omni does have one.
Omni we have a registry that we utilize to keep track of people.
So we do hope in the future, but we, like I said, right now it's a lot of word of mouth. We work with a lot of physicians. So in that capacity, we're able to talk to physicians to say, these are some things that are going on in our units. If you can pass this along to if you think that there's somebody in your practice that may be eligible, send them our way. So it's a little different avenues.
I guess so. And then, of course, as time goes on, you'll have more and more people. You'll have had contact with more and more people. So, what did you say, 60,000 in Athens County?
You're making me deep into my memory there. I think the last time I looked at the census, which was 2010, I think Athens County has 60,000 people. I don't think that number counts most of the college students. I think if you throw the college students in there, it's probably closer to 85,000 or something.
when school's in session.
Right, but I think it's somewhere between 50 and 60,000 in Athens County
So,
proper.
like, even 1% would be fantastic in terms of your database. Like, I mean, 600 would be good, I think, huh? So, maybe, who knows, maybe that'll happen over time. But I think the most important thing, or this is just from the fact that I participated in a study, I think for a person who's going to do this, I think the most important thing is to feel like it's not medical. It's not you're not going to wear these white coats and carry clipboards and, all that kind of stuff. That I think the factor of more relaxed, which you have, a much more relaxed atmosphere. You just feel like you can sit down and have a cup of coffee and relax. And, I think that's really important too. Now, suppose a person did this, like me, I volunteered on a study. Suppose I say, I don't ever want to do that again. I could tell you that and you take my name away.
Absolutely. Everything, including while you are enrolled in a study, everything is absolutely voluntary. You can withdraw at any time with no penalty or, per se, to you.
You aren't going to hunt me down
No,
and call
we're
me
not hunt you down.
like those
You can-
basement people that want me to waterproof my basement. No. Oh, good.
What I do like to tell folks is that we are always constantly trying to improve what we're all doing. And so should you choose to withdraw or should you choose for us never to contact you, we love to hear feedback. Again, it's voluntary whether you give us the information or not, but that's how we learn and how we grow and how we are constantly improving what we do.
Well, that's good. I think that's probably helps people to kind of think about it and know that if it's not for them,
Right.
they can, with no penalty of any kind,
Absolutely.
back out of there.
Yeah,
and
that's
not do it again.
it's a good point, Jane. It's for sad reasons, but we're as scientists that do human research, we have a lot of ethical standards that we have to meet. And the reason we have these strong ethical standards is because in generations prior, they abused them. I mean, there are cases out there that we all have to study regularly as part of our certification processes of scenarios where people were doing unethical things to people.
And I think
prisoners,
right,
things like that.
Right, we've all heard, I think,
Yeah.
of something like
Yeah,
that.
and so what we always do now with every study we do, in the one we're talking about now, typically it's me, sometimes it's Rachel, but we sit down with someone for somewhere between half an hour to an hour, and we tell them everything involved in the study. It's what we call the informed consent process, where people, we make sure that they understand what they're going to do, what the benefits to them are, what the potential side effects or risks are, and we fully explain that. And then we also make it clear on a number of occasions that people can opt out of certain parts of a study. If they get to one thing and they say, I just do not want to do that, that's fine. Or if they say, I just want to totally drop out of the study completely, that's fine as well. And the people that I work with, and Rachel's probably the perfect example, are superbly professional. I mean, we really do. I'm proud of the shop that we run, so to speak, and how professional they are in terms of how they handle those kind of things.
And that's so important because life changes happen.
Yeah,
You don't
absolutely.
expect something. Anything can happen to us at any given moment, which I guess we all know, but we think it won't.
Yeah.
I know it could, but I hope it won't. I think it won't. So that's good to know too. Well, Rachel, this is really interesting. I've enjoyed hearing about this.
I've enjoyed being here today.
Yeah, and tell people again, if there's somebody out there listening, watching, how, and they do want to participate in this, how could they get in touch with you?
So for this study specifically, we have a website and we have an email address. The email address is uncode, UNCODE, @ohio.edu. And the website, I'm not sure if we gave that information for later, but Brian probably
I-
will.
We'll be giving it, we'll put it up on the screen
Yeah.
later.
It's www.ohio.edu/uncode.
Okay, that's the website.
Yep.
Yes.
So we'll put it up on the screen. Don't panic if you didn't have your pen and pencil ready, because we'll put it up on the screen at the end. Oh, there it is. email omni@ohio.edu. There you go. And then there's a phone number. Was that your phone number?
I think that is a general line.
That's
for
a general
information.
line that comes to an administrative associate that works within the unit.
So you could say, I want to talk to
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes, talk
And-
to any of us.
Uh-huh.
Everybody knows.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to know you now. So
Yes,
see, they're going to want to
that's
talk
right.
to you.
They can talk
because
to me, yes.
You have a friendly face. So I want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
It has
today.
been very informative and interesting, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Love to, anytime.
Okay. Okay, so here we are back again with two more people who are involved with the Omni study that we were talking about earlier in a different capacity, right?
Right.
So this is the part of it that I think is fascinating because obviously you're doing all of these things to create data that's going to determine whether or not this premise that you came up with is going to be valid. So Letha is a part of the team, and it's interesting, you are a physical therapist, right?
That's right. Mhm.
And when you work with the team, or with the people who are doing the study, what do you do?
Okay.
Twist them up like pretzels?
I try not to do that. Actually, there's a whole range of data that we collect. And so at one end, there's the very clinical sort of data that is functional. And then at the other end, it's a lot more scientific. And so I'm sort of over on this end. Well, Shin and I span all of this, and we kind of meet in the middle. I'm at the more clinical, functional level of data collection, and he's very scientific. So I'll go ahead and start, working my way from the functional level to the middle, and then he can tell about what he's doing. As a physical therapist, I do all of the functional testing, which involves maybe climbing stairs to see how fast someone can climb stairs, climbing stairs with 20% of their body weight, those sorts of functional things. There's a 6-minute walk test. I also do that. We also have a standard battery of tests that we do that are functional tests, chair rise, a 4-meter walk
remember,
test. Yeah.
This has to do with muscles. And
Yes.
the muscular.
So we need to see how people can do functionally, how their muscle strength is working functionally for them. It's very necessary to be able to walk across the street in the time that the light is green.
Yeah.
And that is actually one of the criteria built into one of the tests. So I also do some of the imaging, the DEXA imaging, which shows how much muscle mass a person's body has, and their bone density, which is important data for us as well. So then moving on from the more functional type testing towards the middle of that spectrum, Shin and I both work in the neuromuscular lab collecting data. It has to do with the brain as well. Some of the TMS, I don't know, do you want to jump in and help me with the TMS part?
Okay, so the TMS is it's called transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like
well,
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Sounds frightening, but it's pretty
It's really
simple
not.
mechanism, and there's no harm. It's we use some kind of special device to create some kind of signal artificially from the brain to the muscle, so that we can find out how brain is kind of communicating the muscle, how efficient brain is, controlling your muscle activity.
How excitable your brain tissue is with that magnetic stimulation.
And okay, so that's interesting because, or I think this, why am I saying because? I don't really know, but it seems to me like, let's just say, my muscle tone wasn't that good, and you used this device and stimulated my brain, and then my muscles reacted better. That's kind of what you're trying to see. Would that happen, right? Is that...
Yeah, I mean, we are not looking at like using the stimulation to without or with stimulation, we are not gonna look at the difference between two. Rather, we kind of mimic the signal you create to activate the muscle. Using that kind of device, we can kind of create the signal artificially to look at the efficiency of the communication.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I get it.
that's the way we kind of look at the
Fascinating. Fascinating.
So those two magnetic fields that are created create an electrical impulse, just like your brain would do if you're making it do it yourself. But it just creates that impulse to cause a muscle contraction, whether that would be in your arm muscles or your lower extremity muscles, your legs. Those are the two muscle groups that we test.
And then do you measure that signal?
Yes.
And does it change over time?
You mean when you get older? Or
Yeah.
Yes.
It does.
It definitely changes, huh? That's interesting. How did somebody find this out? How did we even know this, that the brain was involved in this?
That's been Brian's work for about 15 years now, starting with his postdoctoral dissertation. So, I mean, it's just been a body of evidence that's been collecting over many, many years, I guess, and he's chosen to work in this area with the older adult population to apply this science to that population.
That's fascinating.
It is.
Absolutely fascinating. So do you foresee in the future, look down 50 years from now, people could have an implant to
kind of assist in the communication to improve the mobility? That's possible. Yes, I think so. Yeah, like a brain machine interface to kind of assist the communication. Yeah.
because that's what you make me think of when you say this. Like, okay, my brain isn't doing very well, but you can boost the signal, with what you're doing, and maybe then, who knows, maybe it could be in the Olympics then, I get this really great signal, but let's go back to reality.
Okay.
Let's go back to what's really going on. So, in the process of starting someone, you begin by testing what they do, what their
Yes.
capabilities are.
Yes, and that's on our first visit. We do the functional testing, which I was talking about before, and that's sort of our baseline data. And then in the next couple of visits after that, we collect the data from the neuromuscular lab and those other two visits. So,
So you have a baseline for everybody, and you know where they've started out.
yep.
And then, does this information then, feed into the determination as to whether or not the premise that you've started the study with is actually true? I mean, how do you determine from all this information that you've got whether or not the premise is working?
So down the road, after we collect everybody's data, we will do fancy statistical analysis. And
That's
and-
you, fancy statistical Mr. Fancy Statistical Analysis. She was looking at you, I got that.
And we will look at that to see if there are correlations and connections for different how much the brain is affecting the muscle weakness in the older adults in general.
Fascinating. And there's a lot of probably statistical formulas that you use. I mean, I'm sure very sophisticated, blah, blah, blah. Thank God we've got computers, right? You don't have to use a slide rule or any of that.
Right, that's a good
I
point.
vaguely remember that.
Yeah, Dr. Romano probably doesn't remember what a slide rule is.
I'm trying to forget, really. I was an English major. What do I know about that? Nada. But, so do you build, each time there's a study, do you build a new set of formulas and so forth to study the results from that study?
Yeah, I think it depends on the project, and it depends on what we really want to see from the data we collect in each project. But we kind of discuss with the primary investigator in this project, Brian and Dr. Clark, and then try to find out the best way to pull up the best information from the data we collect, and then using some computer program. I'm specialized and write the program to process all the data efficiently, quickly, to provide those kind of result to the primary investigator.
Oh, what a job you have. That's because that's so important. Because if your programs don't work, it's going to be a tragedy. So I can see this is all behind the scenes. Obviously, probably somebody who participated in the study would probably never even meet you or rarely would meet you.
Oh, no. He interacts. We both interact
Yeah.
with
Oh, really?
the
Do you?
subject.
Also,
Yeah.
always be
Yeah.
at the lab to collect the data. Assist Brian
Yeah.
and Lisa.
Well, that's nice, though. You're not stuck away in an office somewhere just working on your computer. You get to meet people as
Yep.
they come in. Do you put some kind of a crazy little thing on their head to do this brain stimulation thing?
Oh, in this project? Not the crazy stuff, but we actually have to put some kind of head band to kind of fix the electrode on the head. But it's not really crazy.
It's not a
like,
little hat with wires
it's not
coming
like
out.
as you said, it's pretty nice. Looks scientific.
Oh,
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
Looks scientific. I like that.
I would say.
Yes. This is what people, you can't help but think of Frankenstein movies.
Yeah.
Have you seen a Frankenstein movie? Yeah, okay. So this is, people go there, I'm sure. And this is nothing like that, of course.
No.
But to get back to the person who might actually be interested in doing this, and we hope somebody will be, because it's very worthwhile. So when you're studying these various aspects of their motor coordination or ability, it isn't very taxing, is it? I mean, the one that I did, it was pretty, I wasn't like even panting, and I'm not even in good shape. So what does a person, how physically trying is this study that you do?
I think it varies from person to person. If someone's not used to climbing stairs or carrying, a weighted bag up the stairs, then it may be a little more challenging for them. If they're not used to walking for 6 minutes as fast as they can to cover as much ground as they can in 6 minutes, then that may be taxing for them. For others, it may not be that bad. So some of the lab testing requires physical exertion of either the upper of the arm or the leg muscles, and it's many, many repetitions of those for about 3 hours. So I think that it's a varied response from people, just depending on what your activity level is before you
Now
come
when
into
you say
the
3
class.
hours, you're not lifting your leg for 3 hours.
You're doing it multiple times. Yeah, so
you do get a rest.
yeah, absolutely,
Yes.
you get a rest. But do people get tired? I imagine to some extent, but it's not exhausting. So,
And that's the way, when I was in the other study, the one where they were studying the drug, we did, similar things. And like I say, I'm not in best shape by far, and it wasn't taxing for me at all. But I'm hearing from what
you're
I'm
in good
hearing
shape.
you-
You did a great job, and you're very strong.
I was in good shape.
Yeah.
They always say if you ever were, you're better off. I did a lot of things in my youth that were athletic, so I probably
shows.
was at one time. But anyway, so let's say you're not me, and you think, oh my God, I'm just a couch potato, and they're going to be testing me, and I'm just going to be a big flop at this. Well, I'm thinking you need people from all ranges.
You absolutely do. And like I said, if there are, or like I think Brian and Rachel had touched upon, if there's anything you don't want to do, you don't have to. We'll take what we can get, and we'll be so thankful for that. But no, these are activities that, pretty much activities of daily living that are incorporated into a sort of a standardized test. And so most people do these things all day, every day. So
No
hopefully.
And anybody who works at OU is walking for more than 6
Yes,
minutes. That's
yeah.
for darn sure. And usually at a pretty fast clip because you got to get to a meeting and
Exactly.
and so on. So, well, I think that should be reassuring. And the fact that whether you have excellent physical, let's say, or muscular tone at the moment, just think of this as everything's a bell curve, right?
Absolutely.
There's the guy, there's Tony Roma, let's say, the professional athlete. Boop, there's most of us in the middle, and then boop, down here is somebody who really doesn't do anything, who just sits on the couch and watches TV. Well, all of those people are going to have muscles.
Absolutely, and they need to be able to use them.
Yes, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
And so you're capturing data on all different kinds of people. You're not just wanting to capture the people who are already, physically fit.
No.
Them plus the middle plus the low
Right.
end. You need everybody.
Right.
Well, so there you go. Now you know what it is that Omni is doing. You kind of know how they're doing it. You know how they're capturing the data and what kind of data they're interested in. And if you did this, you'd have to wear his little headband. But it might be cute. You never know. You might get a big kick out of it. And they might take your picture. I even got my picture taken once. So. And it wasn't a bad picture either, for those of you who are afraid to take a bad picture. It wasn't bad. So this to me is part of our community, part of what OU is about, which is not only providing a world-class education for our students, but also opportunities for the community to participate.
Absolutely.
So I hope that you'll think about this. We're going to put up the information again about with the telephone number and the email. And I myself, I got an email somehow from them when I got it in the study, and I just emailed, and they emailed me back, and here I am. So just go ahead and send an email. There's Brian Clark. Brian was on before you, I'm sure. And remember, you couldn't have forgotten him this fast. And there's his website, and there's the phone number. And everybody at Omni that I've ever met is friendly and very, very easy to talk to and, to deal with. So
I'm glad that was your experience.
it was. It really was. And, you have a little fear like, what is this? Like I said, is everybody going to have white coats and be kind of austere and a little bit cold? No, this group is not like that at all. So don't even worry about that.
And if you are curious about what how we are going to test, you can go to the website, and there are a bunch of YouTube video regarding how we are testing. So you can make sure that you are not going to wear the Frankenstein scary hat.
I think I'm going to come over there and put on a scary hat and get your video. What do they call that? Photobomb your video. That'd be great. You're right with my scary hat.
Larry Hamill-Lambert from Ohio University did all the videos, and they came out beautifully. And it does a very great representation of what you'll see if you come in to participate in this study.
Okay, so I think that this has been fascinating. I could go on talking to you guys all day, but sadly we only have an hour, folks. So thank you so much, both of you, for coming in and participating with us in this discussion. And again, I urge you to contact Omni and participate just as a member of our community if you have any interest in this at all. So thanks again, and hey, maybe when the study's over, we'll have you come back and talk about what you found out.
That'd be
Yeah,
lovely.
that would be cool.
Okay. Well, that's it for today in terms of the Omni study. And next week, we're going to have something quite different. So I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video and learned a lot more than I could tell you in the introduction about what's going on at Omni. And I also hope if you want it, you got the information on how to contact them. If not, you can call that number again for the station, and we can help you out with the phone number for Omni. And you can also call the Ohio University main number. I think that's 593-1000, and tell them you want to speak to the Omni people, and I think they could get you there. So, and don't forget now, anybody who's interested in appearing on the Halloween show, or I thought about this, and I should have said also, you don't have to come here to the studio if you don't want to. I could tape you myself in the park or, you know, wherever, sitting on a bench at the bike path, you know, behind the library or something. Doesn't have to be here. It doesn't have to be anything formal. And so don't feel like you have to do that if you don't want to. If you want to tell your story and you don't want to come into the studio with all the cameras staring at you, oh, okay, I'll bring my iPhone and meet you somewhere. Okay, Athens, hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Au revoir.